Have you ever spent hours thinking about a problem, only to end up more stressed than when you started? Maybe you replay conversations in your head, analyze every decision, imagine worst-case scenarios, and struggle to switch your mind off. Most people believe overthinking helps them avoid mistakes. But what if overthinking is actually the thing creating the anxiety, doubt, and confusion you're trying to escape? In this episode, you'll discover why people overthink, what happens inside the brain during overthinking, why intelligent people often struggle with it, and how to finally break free from endless mental loops. Welcome back to Native Flow. Let's begin with truth number 1. Overthinking is often a form of self-protection. Truth number 1. Overthinking is often a form of self-protection. Let's start with something surprising. Overthinking is not a sign that your brain is broken. In many cases, it's a sign that your brain is trying to protect you. The problem is that sometimes it protects you too much. Now imagine your ancestors thousands of years ago. They lived in a dangerous world. If they ignored threats, they could get injured, lose resources, or even lose their lives. Because of this, the human brain evolved to constantly scan for problems, potential dangers, possible mistakes, future risks. And honestly, that ability helped humans survive. But here's the problem. Your brain still uses that ancient system today, even though most modern problems are very different. Now, you're not usually worried about wild animals. You're worried about what people think of you, whether you made the right decision, whether you'll succeed, whether you'll fail, whether you said the wrong thing. And honestly, your brain often treats these situations like serious threats. Now think about a simple conversation. Maybe you tell a joke. Nobody laughs. You go home. And suddenly your brain starts working overtime. Did I sound stupid? Did I offend someone? Should I have said something else? What are they thinking about me right now? The event lasted 10 seconds. But your brain may spend 2 hours analyzing it. Why? Because it's trying to prevent future embarrassment. Now here's the irony. The more you analyze the situation, the worse you often feel. Not because the situation became worse, but because your attention stays focused on it. And honestly, attention is fuel for overthinking. Whatever you keep feeding with attention tends to grow. Now let's talk about uncertainty, because uncertainty is one of the biggest triggers of overthinking. The human brain loves certainty. It wants answers, predictions, control. But life doesn't always provide those things. Sometimes you don't know what someone thinks. Sometimes you don't know what will happen tomorrow. Sometimes you don't know if your decision is correct. And for many people, that uncertainty feels uncomfortable. So the brain tries to solve it. It starts creating scenarios, predictions, possibilities, and endless mental simulations. But here's the truth. Many of those thoughts don't solve anything. They simply create more thoughts. Now imagine standing at a crossroads. You have 2 options. Choice A, choice B. A healthy mind evaluates both options, makes a decision, and moves forward. An overthinking mind keeps returning. What if A was better? What if B was safer? What if I regret this later? What if I'm making a mistake? And honestly, sometimes people become so focused on avoiding the wrong choice that they never fully commit to any choice at all. Now here's something fascinating. Research shows that people often overestimate how much control they have over future outcomes. We think, if I analyze this enough, I'll find the perfect answer. But many situations don't have perfect answers. only reasonable answers. And honestly, accepting that reality can be incredibly freeing. Now let's talk about another hidden reason people overthink: responsibility. Many intelligent and caring people overthink because they genuinely want to make good decisions. They don't want to hurt others. They don't want to fail. They don't want to make mistakes. Those intentions are good. The problem is when responsibility turns into obsession, when preparation turns into paralysis, when thinking replaces action. Now here's the biggest lesson from this truth. Overthinking often begins as self-protection. Your brain wants to keep you safe. Safe from failure, safe from embarrassment, safe from uncertainty. But sometimes, the protection becomes the problem. Because while your brain is busy protecting you from imaginary dangers, it may also be preventing you from living fully. And honestly, understanding this is the first step toward breaking the cycle. Truth number 2. Why intelligent people often overthink more than others. Now let's explore a surprising question. Why do many intelligent people struggle with overthinking? Shouldn't intelligence help people solve problems faster? Shouldn't smart people worry less? Honestly, not always. Because the same mental abilities that help people succeed can also make overthinking worse. Let me explain. Imagine two people facing the same situation. Both send an important message. Both are waiting for a reply. The first person thinks they'll answer when they're free. Then they move on with their day. The second person starts creating possibilities. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they didn't like my message. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they're ignoring me. Within minutes, their brain has created 10 different explanations. And honestly, this ability to generate possibilities is often connected to intelligence. Now here's something fascinating. Intelligent people are often better at seeing patterns, predicting outcomes, analyzing details, understanding complexity. These are powerful strengths. But when combined with uncertainty, those strengths can become a trap. Because the brain keeps searching for answers that may not exist. Now think about a chess player. A beginner might see 1 or 2 possible moves. An expert sees dozens. This makes the expert more effective. But in real life, seeing more possibilities is not always helpful. Sometimes it creates confusion. The brain becomes overwhelmed by options. And honestly, many overthinkers don't suffer from a lack of ideas. They suffer from too many ideas. Now let's talk about imagination. Because imagination is one of the hidden engines of overthinking. The human brain has an incredible ability to imagine the future. This helps us plan, prepare, and avoid problems. But it also allows us to imagine disasters that never happen. Imagine you're about to give a presentation. An overthinking brain might imagine forgetting everything, embarrassing yourself, people judging you, failing completely. The presentation hasn't even started yet. But emotionally, your brain is already reacting to imagined events. And honestly, this is exhausting. Now, here's another interesting truth. Many intelligent people believe that more thinking automatically leads to better decisions. Sometimes that's true, but only up to a point. After a certain point, more thinking often produces diminishing returns. The first 10 minutes may help. The next 30 minutes may help a little. The next 3 hours may simply create stress. And honestly, many overthinkers never notice when they've crossed that line. Now let's talk about perfectionism. Because perfectionism and intelligence often travel together. Smart people are often used to getting things right. Good grades, good performance, good results. Over time, they become uncomfortable with mistakes. And that's where trouble begins, because life is full of uncertainty. You cannot guarantee perfect outcomes. You cannot predict everything. You cannot eliminate every risk. Yet overthinkers often try. Now imagine standing before an important decision. A healthy thinker asks, "What's the best choice with the information I have?" An overthinker asks, "How can I be 100% certain this choice is perfect?" And honestly, that level of certainty rarely exists. Now here's one of the biggest myths about overthinking. People often believe overthinking means they care more, that they're more responsible, more prepared, more intelligent. But sometimes overthinking is simply fear wearing a disguise, fear pretending to be productivity, fear pretending to be preparation, fear pretending to be wisdom. And honestly, recognizing that can be life-changing, because once you see it, you realize that more thinking is not always the answer. Sometimes action is, sometimes experience is, sometimes moving forward despite uncertainty is. Now here's the most important lesson from this truth. Intelligence is not the ability to think endlessly. Intelligence is knowing when to stop thinking and start acting. Because some answers cannot be found inside your head. They can only be found in real life. And honestly, many overthinkers spend years searching mentally for answers that experience could provide in a single day. Truth number 3, how overthinking slowly destroys confidence. Now let's talk about something most people never realize. Overthinking doesn't just create stress, it slowly destroys confidence. And honestly, it does it in a very sneaky way. Because confidence is built through action, but overthinking often replaces action with analysis. Now imagine you want to start something new, speak English, start a business, apply for a job, create content online, or talk to someone you admire. A confident person is not necessarily someone who feels no fear. A confident person simply acts despite uncertainty. An overthinker often does the opposite. They wait, analyze, predict, reconsider, and postpone again and again. Now here's the problem. Every time you avoid action, your brain receives a message. The message is, maybe this situation really is dangerous. And honestly, the brain learns from that. The more you avoid, the bigger the fear becomes. Now, imagine someone who wants to speak English. They know enough vocabulary, they understand conversations, but they keep waiting, waiting for more confidence, waiting for better pronunciation, waiting for perfect grammar. Months pass, sometimes years, and because they rarely speak, their confidence never grows. Not because they're incapable, but because confidence comes from evidence, and they never give themselves the evidence. Now here's something fascinating. Your brain doesn't build confidence from thinking. It builds confidence from experience. Think about riding a bicycle. Did you become confident by reading about bicycles? Of course not. You became confident because you rode the bicycle again and again and again. Eventually, your brain learned, I can do this. Confidence was the result, not the starting point. And honestly, the same principle applies to almost everything in life. Now let's talk about self-doubt. Because overthinking feeds self-doubt, like gasoline feeds a fire. Imagine making a small mistake. A confident mind says, okay, I'll learn from that. An overthinking mind says, why did I do that? What does that say about me? What if I do it again? What if everyone noticed? Suddenly, one small mistake becomes a major emotional event. And honestly, this creates a dangerous cycle. The more you overthink mistakes, the less confident you become. The less confident you become, the more you overthink. Now here's another hidden problem. Overthinking makes people focus on hypothetical failures instead of real opportunities. Think about how many opportunities disappear because of excessive thinking. The business that never starts, the conversation that never happens, the trip that never gets booked, the video that never gets published, the dream that never gets pursued. Not because success was impossible, but because the person became trapped inside their own mind. Now, here's something powerful. Every successful person you've ever admired has made decisions with incomplete information. They didn't know exactly what would happen. They couldn't predict every outcome. They acted anyway, because confidence is not certainty. Let me say that again. Confidence is not certainty. Confidence is trusting yourself even when certainty doesn't exist. And honestly, that distinction changes everything. Now imagine two people facing the same opportunity. The first person thinks, what if I fail? The second person thinks, what if I learn something valuable? Same situation, different mindset, different outcome. Now here's one of the biggest truths about confidence. Confidence grows through keeping promises to yourself. You say you'll do something, then you do it. Your brain notices. Trust grows. You repeat the process. Confidence grows again. But overthinking often interrupts this cycle. Because instead of acting, the person keeps negotiating with themselves, keeps delaying, keeps analyzing, keeps waiting. And honestly, every delay weakens self-trust a little more. Now, before we finish this truth, I want you to remember something important. Overthinking feels productive, but confidence is not built through thinking. It's built through doing. The people who seem most confident are not necessarily the smartest. They're often the people who have practiced taking action despite uncertainty. And honestly, that's a skill anyone can develop. Truth number 4, why your brain keeps replaying the same thoughts. Again and again. Have you ever noticed something strange? Sometimes a problem is already over, but your brain keeps returning to it. Again and again and again. A conversation from yesterday, a mistake from last week, an embarrassing moment from years ago. Logically, you know it's finished, but mentally, it feels like it's still happening. Why? Because the brain hates unfinished business. Now, here's something fascinating. Psychologists sometimes refer to this tendency as the need for closure. The brain loves completed stories, solved problems, clear answers, definite conclusions. But life rarely gives us perfect closure. Sometimes people don't explain why they left. Sometimes opportunities disappear without explanation. Sometimes relationships end without clear answers. Sometimes mistakes can't be undone. And honestly, the brain struggles with that uncertainty. So it keeps returning to the problem, hoping that one more round of thinking will finally produce the answer. Now, imagine watching a movie, but the final 10 minutes are missing. Most people would feel uncomfortable. They'd want to know how it ends. The brain treats many real-life situations the same way. If the story feels incomplete, it keeps trying to finish it. Now, here's the problem. Many situations don't have answers available. No amount of thinking can tell you exactly what someone else was thinking. No amount of thinking can change the past. No amount of thinking can guarantee the future. Yet the brain keeps trying. And honestly, this is where overthinking becomes exhausting. Now let's talk about emotional memories. Because not all memories are treated equally. Your brain pays special attention to emotionally intense experiences. Embarrassment, rejection, failure, conflict. Why? Because emotionally charged events feel important, and the brain assumes important things should not be forgotten. This was useful for survival. If a dangerous event happened, remembering it increased your chances of avoiding similar danger in the future. But in modern life, this system can create problems because the brain sometimes treats emotional discomfort like physical danger. Now imagine making a mistake during a presentation. Everyone forgets it by the next day, but your brain keeps replaying it, not because the mistake is still important, but because the emotional memory remains strong. Now here's something interesting. The more you replay a thought, the stronger it often becomes. Think of a path through a forest. The first time you walk it, it's barely visible. But if you walk the same path every day, it becomes clear and easy to follow. Thoughts work similarly. The more often a thought is repeated, the easier it becomes for the brain to return to it. And honestly, this is why some people feel trapped inside mental loops. They're not just thinking the thought, they're strengthening the habit of thinking the thought. Now let's talk about control, because overthinking often creates an illusion of control. When life feels uncertain, thinking feels productive. It feels like you're doing something. It feels like you're preparing. It feels like you're solving a problem. But here's the difficult truth. Many things are outside your control. What people think, what happens tomorrow, how everyone reacts, how every situation unfolds. And honestly, accepting uncertainty is one of the hardest skills humans can learn. Now here's a powerful question. What if the goal isn't to answer every thought? What if the goal is to stop treating every thought like a question that needs an answer? Think about that. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear deserves analysis. Not every possibility deserves investigation. Sometimes a thought is just a thought, nothing more. Now let's imagine two people. The first person experiences a negative thought, then immediately starts analyzing it. The thought grows, the anxiety grows, the loop continues. The second person notices the thought, acknowledges it, and allows it to pass. The thought loses power, the loop weakens. And honestly, that small difference can completely change someone's mental life. Now here's the biggest lesson from this truth. Your brain keeps replaying thoughts because it believes repetition will create certainty. But certainty is not always available. And the sooner you stop demanding certainty from life, the easier it becomes to find peace. Because sometimes the solution isn't finding a better answer. Sometimes the solution is learning to stop asking the question. Truth number 5, how to stop overthinking and regain control of your mind. Now we've reached the most important part of this episode, because understanding overthinking is useful, but learning how to stop it is life-changing. And honestly, the solution is not to stop thinking completely. That's impossible. The goal is to stop thinking unnecessarily, to think when thinking helps, and stop when it doesn't. Now, here's the first thing you need to understand. You cannot win a battle against every thought. Many people try. They argue with thoughts, fight thoughts, analyze thoughts. And ironically, this often makes the thought stronger. Imagine trying not to think about a pink elephant. What happens? You immediately think about a pink elephant. The harder you resist, the more attention you give it. And honestly, overthinking works similarly. Now here's a better strategy. Notice the thought without chasing it, without analyzing it, without fighting it. Just notice it. For example, maybe I embarrassed myself. Instead of spending an hour analyzing it, simply recognize that's a thought, not a fact, not reality, just a thought. And honestly, that small shift can be incredibly powerful. Now let's talk about action, because action is one of the greatest enemies of overthinking. Think about it. Overthinking lives in the future, in possibilities, in predictions, in what-ifs. Action lives in reality. Now imagine you're nervous about speaking English. You could spend 3 hours thinking about it, or you could spend 10 minutes actually speaking. Which one creates progress? The second one. Almost every time, because action provides information. Overthinking only provides speculation. Now here's another powerful technique. Ask yourself, is this a problem I can solve right now? If the answer is yes, take action. If the answer is no, thinking about it repeatedly won't help. And honestly, many people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to solve problems that don't currently exist. Now let's talk about decision-making, because many overthinkers become trapped trying to find the perfect choice. But here's the truth. Most decisions don't require perfection. They require movement. Imagine standing at a crossroads. You spend weeks choosing the perfect path. Meanwhile, someone else chooses a reasonable path and starts moving. Months later, they have experience, knowledge, feedback, progress. You still have uncertainty. Why? Because action creates clarity. Thinking alone rarely does. Now here's something fascinating. The most confident people are not the people who eliminate uncertainty. They're the people who learn to live with uncertainty. Think about entrepreneurs, athletes, creators, leaders. None of them know exactly what will happen. They move forward anyway. And honestly, that's a skill that can be developed. Now let's talk about attention, because attention is your most valuable resource. Whatever receives your attention grows. Feed fear. Fear grows. Feed confidence. Confidence grows. Feed action. Results grow. And honestly, many overthinkers accidentally feed the wrong things every day without realizing it. Now here's a simple question that can change everything. What would I do right now if I trusted myself? Think about that. Not if you were certain, not if you were fearless, if you trusted yourself. The answer often reveals the action you've been avoiding. Now here's another important lesson. Your thoughts are not always instructions. Many people treat every thought as a command, every fear as a warning, every doubt as evidence. But thoughts are often just mental events. They appear, they disappear, and they don't always deserve your obedience. Now let's imagine your future self, the version of you who no longer spends hours trapped in endless mental loops, the version of you who makes decisions, takes action, learns from mistakes, and moves forward. How does that person become real? Not by eliminating uncertainty, not by finding perfect answers, but by building trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your ability to adapt. Trust in your ability to handle whatever happens next. And honestly, that's the real solution to overthinking. Not certainty. Self-trust. Now, before we finish this episode, I want you to remember something important. Overthinking promises certainty, but rarely delivers it. Action feels riskier, but often delivers freedom. The goal is not to think less. The goal is to think better, to know when thinking is helping and when it's simply keeping you stuck. Because life is not lived inside your head, it's lived outside of it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Native Flow for more English learning podcasts about psychology, communication, confidence, personal growth, and success. Keep learning, keep growing. And remember, sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to stop thinking about it and start living again.